It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's make it happen. Let's do it. What do they say?
We don't get fooled again.
Every single day.
Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heartland of America in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America network. Welcome in. Good morning. It is the day we've been looking forward to all week long. It is finally a Friday. What the heck? Let's make it a free-for-all Friday. We do it every single week, and today is the day where it's open lines to you. You get to decide the topics, the discussions, the conversations, whatever you want to talk about. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? Let's do it. All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. We'd love to hear from you today. Anything. I am your political therapist, so whatever's bothering you, troubling you, just getting that itch where you got to talk about it, you can do so today, because today is the day to make that happen. We're also live on Facebook Live today, facebook.com/1480KQAM. I have shared it onto every other affiliate station as well that's broadcasting the show as well, so you can leave a comment, ask a question, say hi, good morning, can call me a jerk. I don't really care one way or another. I just want to hear from you on there. Let's break the algorithm of Facebook. It's weird. I talked about it a couple of days ago, but there's been I don't know if it's a company on here. I don't know if it's a spoof company. I don't know if it's a fake company. I don't know what it is, but we'll have a really, really high day on our Facebook Live numbers with a lot of people viewing it and checking it out. And then all of a sudden they'll report one of the videos as blocked content, and then I have to dispute it. But then for the next couple of days afterwards, then the viewership's really, really low. And I don't know if it's just because people are busy not viewing in or checking in, or if it's because of maybe the algorithm of Facebook has limited the exposure of the feed. Regardless, though, we get a really high number and then we get a really low number. So nonetheless, check it out. Visit it, facebook.com/1480KQAM, or just go onto the Facebook page of your station that you're listening to this morning, regardless of where you're at across the entire Mid-America region. Welcome into it. First off, I have to say thanks again to Americans for Prosperity, to Jeff Glendetting, the state director, to all the wonderful people that are partnering up with Americans for Prosperity. Tim Phillips, the national president of the AFP. He was in town yesterday. I got to head up right after the show yesterday, went up to Topeka, got to MC their rally that they had in the Capitol building. It was a lot of fun being in the Capitol, and it was really nice being able to see the children walking around and the tours going on, and there was other things happening and people walking by. And as we're doing that, then we get to talk about tax rates and trying to advocate for important tax rates, lower tax rates, fighting the crazy spending that's happening up there. It's really important. So I really appreciate the opportunity to head up. The second time to head to Topeka in the last week, which I have never been to Topeka until this week, and now I've got to go twice. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a great honor to do that, and hopefully it helped. Hopefully it helps. We had State Senator Ty Masterson speak. I saw many of our state representatives show up that were very intrigued by what we were doing, and we got to speak with them briefly. So hopefully that helps. Secretary of State Chris Kobach swung by and got to visit and chat as well. So that was really great. Hopefully it helps when we go into this last week of the session, the veto session, the wrap-up session, whatever you want to call it, because it's that important. There's going to be, we could potentially be increasing our spending in the state of Kansas by $1 billion just in the next week. With a state that has an entire state budget of close to $8 to $9 billion, they want to increase spending in 1 year by $1 billion. And by the way, that's during an off-budgetary season because we do our budget for every 2 years. And this is an off-budget season, so they're going to try and raise our spending by close to $1 billion, then turn around and come back and want to get reelected this November, and we're just not going to let that happen. So it was a lot of fun. It was really great, and the importance of it was astronomical. If you didn't get to go, if you missed it, they did have a video. Paul Suter, he comes on the show all the time, and he goes to the Pachyderm Club quite a bit and takes video and photos and everything. He recorded it. It is on the Facebook page today. I shared it onto the Voice of Reason page, shared it onto the KQAM page, shared it onto my personal page. So if you missed the rally, it's about 30, 35, 40 minutes. You can go on there, and you can view the entire thing with all the great speakers and with everything that we did, and get to see the crowd and everything. So we appreciate him very much for doing that. And if you didn't go to the rally, you can check it out. Just go to facebook.com/1480 KQAM, and you can see the video from the rally yesterday. So it was an absolute blast, but let's get to it. It is a free for all Friday, which means it's open lines to you. And let's jump right into our first phone call of the morning, 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Deacon.
Hey, good morning, Deacon. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Hey, I just going back to the news story about how minorities are getting tased in Wichita.
Yes.
All right. There was, what was it, last night? There was the news story about the 12-year-old and the 15-year-old committing an armed robbery. Is that racist policing, or what is that? Do we need to raise the gun buying age to 30 now because 12-year-olds are getting guns illegally? I mean,
probably.
What do we do here?
Probably. I mean, they're not. If they would follow the law, like, the law-abiding, robber would do, then you're right. Then they shouldn't have that gun in the first place. So we should probably raise the age limit to firearms to probably the age of at least 21, maybe the age of 25 or 30. So that way the 12-year-olds that already illegally have a firearm trying to rob a store, then they would probably have a harder time being able to get the firearm. And then, but it's not their fault. If you remember, there was a story about a month ago of an individual who was under attack by the parents and the grandparents of two high school students that were 16 or 17 years old, tried to break into a home and had actually the brass knuckles trying to scare and intimidate this older individual, and come to find out he was a veteran with an AR-15, ended up shooting and killing these kids. And this wasn't a Wichita story, it was a nationwide story. But now he's coming under attack by the parents and the grandparents of the children that died because it was an unfair fight and they did not intend to go into a home and die because of their action. And yes, it was a dumb mistake, but yet they shouldn't have deserved to die because that is an inappropriate penalty and punishment for what they were doing. So therefore, we should not only have guns, but we should not have guns, especially for people trying to defend themselves and what they're doing on a daily basis too.
Right. So if you're an older person or, say a smaller woman, if you can't fight back with your hands, then you should just take the butt whipping, right?
Exactly.
They kick the crap out of you.
Exactly. Yes, you should probably take a couple of hits from the brass knuckles because the students, they were in the wrong, but they didn't deserve to die. So therefore, you should probably just let them do their thing, and then they can be punished by being having a slap on their wrist afterwards. Anyways, so that's probably what we should do because that's the appropriate response on how we actually take care of individuals breaking the law. And yes, so these young kids that are trying to rob stores with guns, we should probably raise the gun age to age 30. So that way it'd be even more difficult for them to get it because then maybe they wouldn't have it. But then if someone would have tried to defend their business or their home if these kids try to break in, then it probably would have turned into racism because how dare that they actually try and, do something like that by trying to shoot these innocent kids.
Right, and let's pass a new law making it illegal for someone to use a gun to rob somebody. Wait, that's already against the law. Jeez, I'm late again.
Craziness, right? Craziness.
Thanks a lot, brother. You have a great day.
You as well, Deacon. Have a great weekend. Great Friday for you. I appreciate it. 316-721-825. This is literally where we're at in society today. You bring up a really good point. And I knew the story. I saw the headline of it. Didn't really read into the story of that. But I don't know whether the kids are minority descent or not. Doesn't make any difference to me. Doesn't make any difference. If someone breaks the law and if they're breaking into a store, if they're breaking into a home, then I am of the advocacy that if they are breaking in and wanting to cause harm or wanting to steal, then you have all the right in the world to use that deadly force against them. And I have no sympathy for that whatsoever. I really don't. If someone wants to break the law and someone wants to cause harm and someone has the intent of doing something illegal that's already against the law, then I do not care what skin color they are, what their parents are, who, the small town politics that you see sometimes about, well, my kid is better than yours because we have that last name. That stuff used to bug the hell out of me. And I don't really care who they are. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, doesn't matter to me. If someone's breaking the law and doing something they're not supposed to be doing, then I am all in 110% about using that deadly force. And if something bad happens to them, then, oh, well, guess they shouldn't have been doing it. I really have no sympathy. And I know it's kind of a heartless take to have on there, but the only way that we will have a society that actually abides by the law and actually has less individuals feeling it's okay to break the law is by having those severe punishments and knowing what the repercussions potentially could be. And now I'm not going to this extreme, but if you remember back during the ancient times of many societies in like Rome, if you stole a loaf of bread, you chopped your hand off. No, I'm not advocating for something like that, but at the same time, how many people actually tried to continue to steal bread? Now, obviously, it was a different circumstance and a different situation, and the empire was beginning to collapse, and the people were more concerned about the masses and the distractions happening at the Colosseum as opposed to what's happening with their government, and that's not something that we need to go down that road. We've already kind of been there, and that's why you and I, the activists that are actually listening to talk radio in the morning trying to figure out what's happening with the news, that we're the ones actually waving our hands and yelling and jumping up and down and screaming like a mad person, trying to say, hey, wait a second, it's time for us to pay attention. Tax rates, the concern about law enforcement, the rule of law, the family traditions, the social impacts, the political issues of the day, the elected officials and the votes and what their records are. All of that's extremely important. If people say, I'd rather listen to Kim Kardashian, I'd rather watch the Kardashians, I'd rather watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette because it doesn't make any, I don't really care and I'm not going to be able to have any impact on it anyways, and it doesn't really matter to me, then you're the problem. Just saying. I know it's heartbreaking. I know that it's sometimes very difficult and it's very exhausting to be engaged in politics all the time, but if you're not, then kind of the problem. Just saying. Lots to get to today. It's a free-for-all Friday. Happy Friday to you. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into the Voice of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour. It's great to have you along today. It is a Friday, the day we look forward to every single week, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. A lot of great things to talk about. The big news that we'll talk about in the show at some point today is, of course, Mike Pompeo. First off, congratulations, getting the official nomination and the vote passed in order to become Secretary of State and hit the ground running with his meeting in North Korea with Kim Jong-un. We'll talk about that a little bit later. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is a free-for-all Friday, and with that, let's go right back to the phones this morning, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, good morning, sir. How you doing?
Well, I like your T-shirt.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Oh, what I really want to talk about is that this chastity woman, or what's this crazy woman's name that supposedly gave the president a freebie or something like that? Anyway, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that a major political party would introduce on stage a woman that does porno films? People like to glorify. Do people, and I'm not going to say it, do people really realize what porno films is, you know? And they bring her like she is so pure and innocent. Man, this woman wouldn't lie. This woman, my gosh, she goes to church every other day and the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
But they're introducing a woman that does porno films as their big pride and joy for representing the Democratic Party. Is that not insane, or what in
Eddie,
the world is going on?
This has been the party for a long time. Look, anybody that helps them say their agenda to help demonize whoever they want to demonize at the time is going to be the person that they hold up. Let me tell you a story. When I was in the college Republicans at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, the college Democrats, we always would bring in speakers, either the Republicans or the Democrats. We'd bring in different speakers. We brought in a couple with Kevin McCullough. I don't know if you know the radio host. He does a show with Baldwin. And we brought in Representative Tom Tancredo out of Colorado, who's running for, I think he is still running for governor this year again. But the Democrats at the time when we were there, the Democrats brought in two speakers that I thought were hysterical. First one was Seth MacFarlane. He's the writer of Family Guy. And he campaigned for Bernie Sanders in the last election, said that we just need a little bit of democratic socialism, and that was his big thing. But the big one that got me, that I did not understand how this is even okay for him to set foot on a college campus, let alone actually be the big speaker, is the domestic terrorist Bill Ayers. The Democrats brought him, paid for, and brought him in as a special speaker to the university of Bill Ayers. And I could not understand how this is even okay for him to set foot on a college campus after being a domestic terrorist and wanting to commit the atrocities that he did with the Weather Underground.
Yes, all that kind of stuff. You know, this woman that supposedly connected with our president, you know, she claimed that she was beat up or stalked or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm certain she failed to say that her pimp's been after her because she's been broadcasting she's giving freebies. And he can't make any money if she's giving away freebies.
He doesn't like that very much.
So that was the guy that was chasing her. You know.
No, you're right. I mean, look, the Democrats, they don't care who they partner up with. They don't care. They don't see a line of morality, the progressives. And I'm not saying the entire Democratic Party, because there's some decent individuals there, but they're very difficult to find nowadays. But there is a lack of standard that they hold themselves to. As conservatives and Republicans, for the most part, and even as religious individuals, we try to hold ourselves to a better standard every day and try to improve ourselves, and we understand that we make mistakes, and we try to work on those. When the progressives come to the political line, they really do not care. They will stoop to any level because if someone helps them with their agenda, regardless of who it is or what their reputation may be or what they've done, they don't care. They will promote and advocate for that because to them, that just helps their agenda. So an adult film star, a domestic terrorist, a foreign nation that may not necessarily believe in women's rights or believe in LGBTQ rights, but they are the quote-unquote victims in our society, so therefore we hold them up in that sense. Islamic extremists, not Islam itself or the Muslim religion, but Islamic extremists who actually want to cause harm. You know, we need to just not worry about any type of vetting when we come into the country. They don't care because if it makes us, the Republicans, look bad, they will do whatever it takes to hold them up onto the pedestal and make them not only the victim, but parade them around as if they are the most important people in the world.
The saddest thing is that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we're all Americans. And if you tear down, I don't think they realize that they are tearing down the country they live in.
Sure.
This is the country they live in, and they're tearing it down, and they don't care.
And they don't. Sad. They will never care. I mean, you heard some of the comments from, obviously the NFL players where they kneel to the flag, and what was it? The owner of the Patriots, I believe, that came out and said that the president is the one being divisive because he wants all of us to be unified and standing with the flag and actually supporting and thanking what the flag actually does and what it represents. And by that, apparently, we're divisive because we should hate the flag. We should probably burn the flag. We should kneel and show it disrespect any way we can because that'll be unifying for the nation, and then we can really try and change things the way we want to change them, right?
Oh, sad. But I'll tell you what, Andy, you and I, we both love our country, and we're not going to let it fall, period.
I love that. That is exactly what we're here for, Eddie. I appreciate it very much. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend to you. You're right. That's what we're here for. We are the most patriotic show on radio, on TV, broadcasting anywhere in any way, shape, or form. Why? Because we understand what patriotism, real nationalism, the original intent of nationalism, and what the American flag actually stands for. Hoorah! Let's make it happen, baby. Bottom of the hour news. This is the Voice of Reason.
Reason.
We just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome back into it. It's great to have you along today on a Friday morning, trying to get you woken up, ready to go, starting the day. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink. That's the way we roll today on a Friday morning. It is a free-for-all Friday, which means it's open lines to you. We do have a couple guests coming up in the second and third hours, but they're small, they'll be fun, and there'll be some great conversation starters along with us. But it's open lines to you today primarily to talk about anything that you want to talk about. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It is nice outside today. The sun's starting to come up. It's going to be beautiful. Last night was great with 70-degree weather here in at least the Wichita area, and we'll continue to roll along. Hopefully we can see some consistently warm weather now, except for some rain. I can deal with some rain too, but some consistently warmer weather, which we desperately need. 316-721-8255. I want to talk about for a minute. I saw a story yesterday, and congratulations to our congressman here in the 4th Congressional District, Ron Estes, as he received an award yesterday from the conservative voting for his conservative voting record from the ACU, the American Conservative Union. If you remember, they're the same ones that put on the CPAC convention each year. And they're the ones that do a lot of different rallies. We had a rally here in the Wichita area actually for the first time last fall. And it's a really, really great time to refuel your political tanks, to feel good, to listen to speakers, to get all pumped up. I love rallies, obviously. Been able to go to MC a couple of the rallies lately in Topeka, being able to be involved in that sort of thing. It's really good just to get out and feel good about these types of things. And I want to first off congratulate Congressman Ron Estes on his record for that and in receiving the 47th Annual Federal Ratings of Congress and receiving that award for his conservative voting record from the ACU. That one came out yesterday. He earned an 81% score for the 2017 season, which is, by the way, his first session as a member of Congress. If you remember, a few days ago, we had him on the program and chatted just as his 1 year, as we hit his 1 year anniversary of in Congress and what he's fought for and what he's done, and it's really, really great news. Congressman Estes has proven to be an effective conservative leader in the short year he's been in Congress, according to Matt Schlapp. Estes has been a strong conservative voice and has represented my hometown of Wichita with integrity and distinction. The American Conservative Union is proud to represent the award for conservative achievements to Congressman Ron Estes. And looking at the record, if you go to ACUratings.conservative.org, ACUratings.conservative.org, you can go there and you can find the ratings for every elected official in the Senate and in the House, state by state, and what the ratings are as an overall. So I went and I looked at it, and as we mentioned, Congressman Ron Estes with an 81% conservative voting record according to the ACU. And looking at some of the other ones with all 4 House members and our Senate members in the state of Kansas, we're all floating right around that 80 to 85% range, which isn't too terribly bad, and I'm proud of that. We got some work to do because I'd like to see that raise up a little bit, but overall, I don't think that's too bad. Senator Jerry Moran was sitting at, according to the ACU, for his 2017 score, was at an 84%, which is kind of crazy because I know that we've been somewhat critical of him at times about some of the more progressive stances that he's taken. His 2016 record was down to a 68%. His overall lifetime rating was sitting at 87. Pat Roberts, 80% score for 2017, which is a little bit lower than what his 2016 score was at 83%. Congressman Estes, 81%, as we mentioned, with his conservative record. Lynn Jenkins, up on the north end at 85% with her conservative record. Roger Marshall, the lowest one of the 4 on the Big Red in the 1st District, 78%. Right now, and Kevin Yoder was sitting currently this year at an 89%. So overall, I have to say, now, if you believe these, now I take all of these different polls and rankings with a grain of salt because some of them are very legit, some of them are not so legit. And I think that even we could disagree on probably how they grade some of these based on different issues and the justifications of and the votings of and that sort of thing. So, I mean, it's all up in the air and take it with a grain of salt, but it is encouraging that, number one, we have red elected officials across the board when it comes to our federal elected offices. Number two, that we're all sitting roughly within about that 80% range as an average for all of our elected officials, meaning that we have some issues we need to work on. We have some issues we definitely need to address. And I think that maybe this could be skewed in one way, shape, or form if you want to look at it on one side, that overall we do a relatively good job being able to promote somewhat conservatism, and that's good. On the other hand, that a lot of times when it was a really, really big, extremely important vote, a lot of times our elected officials sometimes seem to waver a little bit. And they're good behind the scenes working on some of the other issues, but on other major issues that the public at least is very aware of and that we're really focused on and really passionate about, sometimes we struggle with some of our elected officials to vote on those. And I mean, I'm not going to call out anybody on there, but there have been a few times to where there's been a major vote where the public opinion seems to be leaning more towards one way, and it's really kind of a push to get them to support in one way, shape, or form. But I want to say congrats to Congressman Estes for his award that he's received, and we can continue on, hopefully, with that type of conservative agenda. Now, this is different, and this is why there's a grading curve or a grading scale, or depending on what sources you look at, on where they actually stand. If you go to a progressive organization and you look at some of the ratings, then of course they're going to look like a bunch of right-wing nutsos that are at a 9500% conservative rating because they are terrible, horrible individuals. Remember that. On the ACU, I think the ACU is a relatively conservative organization, obviously the American Conservative Union, and they put on great events like CPAC, which is a very conservative rally in Washington, D.C. So I would give them a pretty decent rating, but another way to grade them as well is the Conservative Review. ConservativeReview.com, and I know that you can go there and you can see scorecards on everybody as well. And according to them, however, every one of our elected officials in Kansas, both senators and all 4 representatives, have either an F or a D rating, sitting at anywhere from 55 to 65%. And that's a little concerning on that front. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. Conservative Review, they're going to be maybe a little more particular. They may try and pick a little bit because they want a little more purity. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan of the Conservative Review. I am a big fan of what the writers of Conservative Review do. I like what their message is, and I like the agenda they try to promote. I agree with it, but you got to take it with a grain of salt yet again based on what we're actually supporting. So regardless of where you actually look, we may see a little bit different ratings, but getting an award from the ACU for conservative votes there, and then you go to Conservative Review and it says that Congressman Ron Estes has an F at a 59% rating. Not sure the discrepancies between the two. I don't know what they're looking at or what their votes may be on. When it comes to the ACU, I did look at some of the votes that they had on here, and I would even disagree with some of these on how they actually supported or how they voted. Let's see here. One of them being military spending. That was one that Congressman Estes, according to the ACU, got voted a negative on, which I would kind of disagree with to some degree. But one of them here, H.R. 3354, for the roll call of rural air service subsidies, is one that I think I would disagree with. And I'm not sure exactly what vote it is. I don't know if it's one that maybe it was the discussion we were talking about, maybe privatizing the air services, which I know that we talked to like JD Aviation and Augusta Flight Center here in the Wichita area, and they were strongly against the privatization of that as a conservative organization, just because of the fact that just like traffic, but air traffic control and that sort of thing needs to be kind of government controlled and regulated, just because it's a public service and we don't want planes crashing into each other because of different private companies trying to regulate and manage these types of things. So I'm not sure exactly what votes these are, the details of them, but I will say that if it is accurate with an ACU rating from every one of our 2 senators and 4 congressmen and women, that we need to be very proud. Kansas is not just the flyover state of what people think it is. Oklahoma, Nebraska is not just the middle of the nation flyover country that people just kind of look over and just ignore and want to move on and go on about their deal. We are the heartland of America. We are one of the most important aspects of the nation, and we need to represent with our elected officials that way as well. In the state of Kansas, we've had the microscope on us for a really long time, depending on what Kansas has been doing with the tax reform that Governor Brownback did back in 2012. with the anti-abortion agenda that we've been able to promote here in the state of Kansas, with the Second Amendment rights that we've been able to promote here in the state of Kansas, that we have been really the example of many other states looking to see what they can do. We need to continue on with that, and not just at the statewide level, but with our elected officials at the federal level as well. When we have proper representation up there and we have the impact that we do, then more and more people are going to continue to look at Kansas and Oklahoma and Nebraska and all of these states right in the middle of the nation that they would think would just be flyover nation that nobody really cares about. We need to represent. And I think we do. I mean, come on. Congressman Estes, his first month in office, he already had 2 editorials out of the Wall Street Journal. He was writing on budgetary issues. He was writing on tax reform issues. Now we're looking at appropriations issues, and I know we're going to talk about that very, very soon. We have Senator Moran and Roberts that are working on the agricultural stuff in the Farm Bill, and I've disagreed with some of what they've said when it comes to the Farm Bill and what's included in the Farm Bill, and them not wanting to really trim a whole lot of the social programs and the food stamps out of the Farm Bill. But they are very, very good when it comes to the actual details of agriculture itself. And the agricultural and commodity issues and the trade and that sort of thing, they're very good there. So everybody's got their pros and their cons. What you and I need to do as the elected, is the voter, really, is to make sure that they represent us the best way they possibly can. And we're a red state. Every one of our elected officials at the national level is a red individual, is a Republican. We have a super majority of Republicans in our legislature. We have a Republican governor. We have Republicans across the board. We need to utilize that and promote conservative values. Why we have redness and Republicanism across the board, yet we still promote very moderate Republican views at times, and even some progressive agendas at times, is very troubling. This year, here's our goal for 2018, is let's make sure that the ACU, when the ratings come out in 2019 for the 2018 year, that all of our elected officials, we bump that score up a little bit. We're always working to improve, right? Always working to make ourselves better. Let's improve it. Let's raise it up a little bit. That's a great start. We're, as an average over the nation with all of our elected officials, at roughly around an 80% rating. Let's raise it up. Let's get to 85%. Let's get to 90%. Let's get to 95%. Why? Because we're the state of Kansas. We're Republicans. We're conservatives. And we have traditionalism like no other state in this nation. And that's what we got to represent here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, 7 minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into it. Making it happen today on a Friday. It's a free-for-all Friday. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. This portion of the Voice of Reason, as it always is on a Friday. Not just a Friday, not just a free-for-all Friday, but a fried chicken Friday. Brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman. With their buffet from lunchtime, their buffet for dinner time, and, of course, fried chicken. Katie's on the line with us. Katie, what's happening this morning? How are you?
Good morning, Andy. Happy Fried Chicken Friday. I'm trying to decide which one is up this morning.
That's a fun Friday. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those like organized chaos kind of days where everything's just awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
Go ahead. That's, I mean, I can say. I mean, already you're looking at what's going to be on the menu for today. You have breakfast going. Everybody's excited. I mean, come on. I know the doors flood open at 6 a.m. Everybody ready for breakfast, and it starts off crazy.
It does start off crazy, and so today, besides all the breakfast that we're cooking, we got to get on this awesome fried chicken buffet. So we are having meatloaf. Is one thing we're having. It's our homemade recipe. And then we're also having a chicken and broccoli casserole that's got the broccoli chicken and a saucy, cheesy goodness. Then we're going to have cheesy cornflake potatoes. Some people like to call those funeral potatoes. You get them a lot at funerals, with the hash browns or the chunks of potatoes and then cheese and cornflakes on top. So those are the things that we're having for lunch, and then, of course, in the evening when you come from 5 to 8, the buffet will come with our famous roast beef, so that's slow roasting and getting ready to come out pretty quick here. Yeah, I know.
I like it.
And tonight, of course, we'll have all of our those other things that I mentioned in a kind of a rotating cornucopia of deliciousness is what I like to say.
It is very nice. I tell you this all the time, and you like the same thing where you just kind of pile everything into the same big pile and just kind of go at it. But my favorite thing is to do all that and then just kind of wrap it up in a burrito and make it into a delicious smorgasbord burrito.
I have that, too. If you really wanted a tortilla, I could give you one, and you could do that. So
I love it. I do. My wife laughs at me every day because we come home and she'll make this really great dinner, and she'll make pork chops, or she'll make a steak, or she'll make a turkey for like a ham for a big holiday dinner, and I'll take that with the mashed potatoes and everything. I just roll it up into the tortilla and smother the gravy all over it, and that's the way I enjoy to eat it. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, we don't judge you on how you eat your food here.
That's
so
right.
You can do whatever you want to it.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, because before we run out of time. Okay, well, let's go through our pies first, okay?
Yes.
So, because it comes with pie in the evening.
That's right. Your free slice of pie.
From 5 to 8, you get your pie. Okay, so we've got chocolate, pumpkin pecan, rhubarb custard, cherry cream cheese, coconut, raisin. That's not sour cream raisin. That's just raisin. Apple and custard. So, and we'll have banana split and whatever else Nick decides to throw together this afternoon because he really likes to make pie. So we're going to have all those pies coming at you tonight. You're going to get your pie first. Now, tomorrow, people who live in the city, people who don't live in the city, people who live anywhere, listen, you've got to come down here to Inman because tomorrow is our big classic car show.
Ooh.
And we're going to have, last year we had over 150 cars, plus we have motorcycles, plus we have antique tractors and farm implements. So there's something for everybody down here. There's games for the kids to play. It's a really big deal right here on Main Street in Inman. Now, we always have our fried chicken buffet on the Saturday of the car show. So if you have always wanted to try out our fried chicken buffet, but you can't ever get here on a Friday, this is your perfect opportunity. So tomorrow we're going to have our fried chicken. We're going to have our wonderful, amazing barbecued meatballs. We're going to have our baked beans that go so well with the meatballs so that you can mix it all together in a big gloppy mess like I was talking about. And then you can also have chicken enchiladas, creamy, cheesy goodness chicken enchiladas. So,
wow.
And there will also be pie available for tomorrow too. So I just wanted to put that out there. The Classic Car Show starts, registration starts at 8, awards are given at 3, so it's an all-day event.
How fun, an all-day event with the Classic Car Show. Definitely something you got to check out. And you have 2 fried chicken days in a row, which I don't know how you guys do it. That's just going to be insane.
I'm going to be tired.
You're taking an extra, you're going to be closed for an extra day next week. That's right, just to recover from that one.
We're going to be, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for that. Great. The car show tomorrow, the Fried Chicken Friday day today with all the great goodies today, along with the pies, and the fried chicken tomorrow with the pies tomorrow as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Katie, I love it. You guys enjoy some breakfast. We'll check in with you here and again in a couple hours.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Talk to you later.
There we go. I love it. Some great stuff going on right there. A great project. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Maybe that's what you do for the weekend. Head up and check that out. Coming up in Inman tomorrow for the Classic Car Show. Hour number 2 coming up. It's still rolling along with your Fried Chicken Friday and a free-for-all Friday. What's on your mind? We'll talk about that when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hour number 2, The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. We're on Facebook Live. We're on the TuneIn app. We're at KQAMradio.com. We're everywhere for you because we are the largest, fastest growing talk show in the entire state of Kansas, all across the board. And welcome in. Oh, what the heck? It's a free-for-all Friday. Let's do it! This is your show as usual. I run the show the rest of the week, but today it's your topics, whatever you want to talk about. It's fine with me. Let's have a little discussion, shall we? Let's make it happen. All right. That's what I'm talking about. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a message, Facebook.com, on the KQAM page, the Voice of Reason page, on Twitter at Hoosier Reason. And you can email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com as well. You're more than welcome to do that. Thanks again to Americans for Prosperity, for Jeff Glendenning, for everybody involved. Tim Phillips, the president, national president of Americans for Prosperity. Thanks to all of them for allowing me to go up to Topeka yesterday after the show, be able to host the rally, the tax rally, being able to talk about tax reform and what we need to do to fight higher taxes, higher spending in the state of Kansas right now. And I've been saying this, we're a week away from the end of the session for 2018, and there's potentially $1 billion, with a B, $billion on the line of additional spending that our government may do. That is insane. That is absurd for a 1 week thing. And what they're going to do is they're going to wait till the last 2 or 3 days, and they're going to put it on the floors, and they're going to ram it through and say that we need to do this, and this is the only way to get her done. And if you're not with us, then you're against us. And if you're not here for the solution, then you're part of the problem. And they're going to force every one of these individuals to try and vote on these things because they're not allowed to go past next Saturday. The way it's written, they're not allowed to go past, they're not allowed to extend it. They're not allowed to move forward. The only way they would come back and actually have a longer time is if the Kansas Supreme Court comes back and tries to say, hey, you need more money for education. Then, of course, they'll try to reconvene for a special session, and then we'll spend more money, and it'll just be out of control. But for their session itself, it's done. It's over Saturday, and what they don't get done, they don't get done. And they're going to try and ram it through as quickly and hard as they possibly can. So be prepared for that. We talked to, 4 or 5 different legislators on the show yesterday. I chatted with many of them, and hopefully you did too when you went up to Topeka yesterday for the rally, and you got to see some of them and chat with them and understand how many of our conservative legislators are feeling a bit discouraged. Call them, email them. Let them know that you're there. Let them know you're supporting them, and that'll help maybe energize them enough to get through this next week because they are not looking forward to what's coming for this upcoming week. So that was big. It was a great event. We had, again, Jeff Glendenning, state director for the AFP. We had State Senator Ty Masterson say a few words, and then, of course, the president of the Americans for Prosperity, Tim Phillips. He spoke a while as well. So we appreciate them. I thank them very much for allowing me to come up and MC their rally for them inside the Capitol. If you missed it, if you were not able to be there or to see it, we did have the video. Paul Suter, he was able to videotape it, take some photos, and do the media coverage for that. We appreciate him very much on that. The video is up online. I put it up on the Facebook page, shared it on the Voice of Reason page, the KQAM page, and my personal page. So that way you can watch the entire about 40-minute rally with all the speakers, with myself, introducing all the guests and all the great speakers and what they had to say. So go there, view it, watch it, check it out. It's really great. So we appreciate that very much. The big news of the day, of course, I have to say, let's do the breaking news here. It is big news. I think we should be excited. Very happy. First off, congratulations to Mike Pompeo, now becoming the Secretary of State officially. That vote happening yesterday. And Mike Pompeo not only celebrating, but also doing probably one of the first best things that Americans can do in a really, really long time. Hitting the ground running. He is the man, let me tell you what. And right off the bat, day number 1 as Secretary of State, meeting face-to-face, in person, with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Now, just imagine this for a second. And all you naysayers of Donald Trump, all the progressives, all the ones that despise Donald Trump and what he's doing, just imagine this. We have had a conflict in North Korea, obviously. We did back in the day. And it's been tense for a while. And then President Donald Trump got elected, and then we had the Twitter battles between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump and the warheads and Kim Jong-un trying to fire off test missiles. And I'm still very nervous about this individual. I still do not trust this guy in any way, shape, or form. He's just kind of a punk kid, is really who he is and what he is. But nonetheless, he's the leader in North Korea, so we have to treat him as such to some degree. The first time, I'm pretty sure, as far as I'm aware, the first time that an American has set foot on North Korea without a gun in their hand was yesterday with our newly elected Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. And let me tell you something. I would not trust or feel more comfortable with anybody else more so than I did with Mike Pompeo walking into that situation, walking onto the soil of North Korea and meeting with the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and hopefully it's coming out to a good discussion. But just that fact, just by itself, representing Kansas, representing from the 4th Congressional District, Mike Pompeo going in, setting foot on North Korean soil, and a meeting happened between the United States and Korea. If you remember, there was a secret phone conversation that happened over Easter weekend where Mike Pompeo had spoken with Kim Jong-un about a potential meeting. The fact that it actually happened means that already, within 1 year of the Donald Trump administration, our foreign relations are 200 times better than what Barack Obama's administration ever was. Right there, off the bat, baby, we're making this happen. And I don't trust anybody more than Mike Pompeo to go and have that conversation. If you see the photos, there are some photos that actually leaked and are on social media, and I shared it onto the KQAM page and the Facebook page for the Voice of Reason. And if you look at the face of Mike Pompeo, you can tell he looks very stern. You can tell that he looks very businesslike. I mean, come on, he's a military guy. This is our enemy, and we're trying to play diplomacy here. Now, the media, of course, is not saying a whole lot about this. They're not enjoying this very much because they don't know how to respond. They were attacking President Donald Trump back when the whole Twitter battle was going on with Kim Jong-un and President Trump about the nukes and about who is cooler and bigger and badder or whatever. And they were attacking, oh, this isn't the right diplomacy. This isn't right. This is going to start a war. This is terrible. This is horrible. How can you be doing something like this? You're destroying the relationship that we could potentially be having with North Korea. Donald Trump is the worst person in the world, and he's not fit to be able to handle this type of negotiation in this type of situation. And we defended Trump at the time and saying, well, you know what? Sometimes when you're dealing with a punk young kid, sometimes you have to talk to their level before they actually understand. And guess what? It worked. It worked. After all of the trash talk on Twitter back and forth with a young punk kid. Look, Kim Jong-un's how old? He's around my age, isn't he? Maybe a little bit older. He's in his 30s, 40s kind of thing, maybe. Donald Trump in his, 70s? And the punk young kid who likes social media, who likes Twitter, who thinks he's a Billy Badass because he's the leader of a nation, and he's the leader of a dictatorial nation at that. He's the one out there tweeting, trying to talk all this smack about what he's going to do as a nation with his missiles and with everything. Donald Trump called him out on it. The grandpa that came out and actually said, you know what? Yeah, try that, little buddy. Let's take it outside. Come on. And he did it. And what's happened since then? Since then, now we see the news of the fact that they're ending the Korean conflict between North and South Korea. We have, for the first time, an American on North Korean soil without a gun in their hand, meeting the leader as our Secretary of State, representing the state of Kansas, by the way. We're setting up a meeting for later on this year with President Donald Trump and dictator Kim Jong-un meeting in the same room. Progressives, left-wing media, what do you have to say about it? What can you possibly say that's terrible about this? You were attacking Trump for not having the right diplomacy back then. You thought it was going to lead to a war. It didn't lead to a war. Now we're meeting with them with diplomatic measures. What are you going to criticize them about? The fact that we're actually meeting with a dictator? The fact that we're not starting a war? Because you're never content and you're never happy. That's the first piece of this. Second off, this is astronomical. More so than I can even fathom the fact that we're meeting with him in person. The fact that Kim Jong-un and the South Korean president, Moon Jae-in, are meeting. They met yesterday, hat tip to the sun. North Korea and South Korea agree to complete denuclearization as Moon Jae-in vows there will be no war with Kim Jong-un. The dictator stood with his southern counterpart for the first time ever in a statement in front of the international media. Now, I have very big concerns about Kim Jong-un with his mental state and what he would do and what he potentially could do by letting people's guards down and then trying to do something really stupid. But I don't think that's going to happen because we have leadership like Mike Pompeo, like President Donald Trump, and we're going to keep them on a tight leash. Let's extend that leaf of offering and peace, but at the same time, let's keep our guard up. What do they say? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Let's do that. Let's have that type of negotiation. Let's have that type of conversation. And that's what we can do. And it's working. It's working. Now, Moon Jae-in, the South Korean leader, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. I don't even know. Come on, we're from Kansas. Moon Jae-in, the Southern leader, if you remember when he got elected just last year, he was elected as a more progressive individual. And the young generation, the millennials down in South Korea, ended up voting for him because they didn't like the capitalism nearly as much. And that was my big concern. So I think a lot of this has to do with South Korea becoming a little more progressive and wanting to partner up with North Korea a little bit more in that sense, because North Korea is not going to change. Kim Jong-un's not going to change into a capitalist society all of a sudden and relinquish his own powers. It's not going to do that. It's not going to happen. So I am a little concerned about South Korea trying to go towards that way just a little bit more. But at the same time, it is encouraging the fact that we are ending the conflict. It is encouraging that we're meeting with them, and with the United States still having their finger on the pulse of this and being able to monitor this very, very closely, I think is very good news. And Mike Pompeo, the one that gets the credit for this. President Donald Trump, the one that gets credit for this, being able to meet with Kim Jong-un for the very first time, North Korea for the very first time since the conflict, and being able to actually hopefully de-escalate some of the situation and actually be able to gain some traction in a positive way. That is great news. That is great news, and that's what we should be very proud of. 316-721-8255. Your thoughts on this as we move forward with a meeting. President Donald Trump, Kim Jong-un, the leader of the North Koreans, with a meeting later on this year. Mike Pompeo. Again, if you haven't seen the pictures, I highly encourage you to do so. Go there, check out the picture, because Mike Pompeo, first off, towers over Kim Jong-un. And with the military experience, with the little more tough talk that Mike Pompeo does, and with being the CIA director, probably having some internal intel of what North Korea is all about, he can play that and mastermind it to a T. He's not going to let Kim Jong-un walk all over him. He's not going to let him bully him. He's not going to let him try and dictate to him. It's going to be civil, but at the same time, it's going to be tough talk. I would feel much more comfortable with someone like Mike Pompeo rather than John Kerry or Hillary Clinton being Secretary of State. Wouldn't you? I mean, come on, if they met over there and said, oh, look at this is going to be such great news and we're going to start working with North Korea, they would probably make a deal with them on some type of terms that North Korea would say, as opposed to Mike Pompeo saying, you're silly, kid. Have fun with that. Good luck. Talk to me again when you actually want to be serious about conversations. Come on, you know Mike Pompeo. He's a congressman right here. We know his temperament. We know his personality, and he is the perfect, absolutely perfect man for the job. We could not be in better hands right now. I am so excited about this. I'm so happy of the fact that we are moving in right directions at the federal level when it comes to some of the international conversations, and we have the leadership to make it happen. Progressives, you're in the wrong on all of this. It's going to show in the upcoming elections. It's going to show in the presidential election in a few years. You guys are in the wrong. You have nothing to be able to offer to counter this. Because you want to talk about winning, right now we're winning more so than we've ever won before. 21 minutes past the hour. Your thoughts and calls on this and more. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Hey, welcome back in. 25 minutes past the hour. Happy Friday. Happy Free for All Friday for you. What's on your mind? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. It's all open to you, whatever you want to talk about today. Good news, bad news, it does not matter. Local news, national news, international news. We're just having a blast all across the board as we talk about winning at the international level. Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley, President Trump, General Mattis. It's the A team. It's the A squad, to where we don't have to worry about anything. At the same front, here on the local and on the statewide front, here's some other good news for you. Progressives, listen up. All your high tax rates that you like, you're thinking that, government's just a great thing to have, and great government regulations, government control, government high taxes for high spending for goodies to be able to help people. Yeah, it's a wonderful idea. According to CNBC, the latest news, 800,000 people are about to flee the states of New York and California because of taxes. According to the latest economists, 800,000 people will be leaving the states over the next 3 years due to the new tax bill, according to the conservative economists, Arthur Laffer and Stephen Moore. So, I mean, it's okay. It's going to be the conservatives that predict this, but at the same time, it's probably going to happen. If you read, and we've talked about this before, there's a list of the top 5 states that actually have population loss and the top 5 states that have population growth. All 5 of the states that usually have population loss are the high-tax, liberal, blue, progressive states. And then, of course, I know the progressives, oh, that's just unfair. We got to force them to stay, because if they stay, then they have to pay their fair share, because they just don't like us taking the money that we deserve, that they actually made, that they deserve, but they don't actually deserve it because they make too much money, and therefore we should cap their profits. Remember those kind of conversations? Capping their profits. That if you make a business, if you start a business, if you have a restaurant, if you have a chain retail store, if you have an online sales store, if you have a customer service store, whatever it is, and you grow because you do really, really well, and you have customer service that people really enjoy, and you have a product that people really like, and you have it at a price that people can afford, and you grow, and you expand, and you hire more people, and you buy more businesses, all of a sudden, apparently, you that masterminded all of this, that created all of this, the owner, the CEO, that's starting to make money from all of the different franchises and all of the different stores across the entire nation or the state or however big you are, apparently you're not allowed to take that money. You're not entitled to that anymore. You don't deserve it anymore because all of a sudden it was no longer your idea, so therefore we should start capping what you're allowed to make. This is the mindset of a left-wing progressive, and I've never understood it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But they truly believe that if you are the CEO, if you are the mastermind of a corporation, of a business, no matter how large or small, that you should be capped at what you're allowed to take as a profit from that. And because of that mentality, we're going to start seeing people leaving those states, which is good news for the people that are wanting to leave because they can actually keep some of their money. It's bad news for a state like Kansas right now because Kansas is not being very enticing to have those kinds of people come here. Imagine if the headquarters of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations or even multi-million-dollar corporations want to leave high-tax states like California and New York, and they end up hearing, they're studying, they're researching which states they can move to where they can enjoy their taxes a little bit better and actually keep their money. Do you think they're going to say, oh yeah, Kansas, where we have the 7th highest sales tax in the nation. We have income tax that's ticking up every single day. We have property taxes that are going up and up and up. We have the industries that are lagging right now with oil and natural gas and commodities and agriculture, and all of them are struggling and suffering right now, and they're raising their taxes up there. Yeah, you know what? I'm leaving a high-tax state. Let me go to another high-tax state like Kansas. Wouldn't we actually want to drop that a little bit, be a little more enticing by saying, yeah, let's not do that. Let's lower the taxes, entice people to come here. Then we can actually benefit as a government. Remember, you're benefiting from this as well, that if you actually entice people to come here, then they come, and then you have more paychecks to be able to mooch off of. Yeah, think about that. More people coming in here, population growth spikes, and then you can actually enjoy more tax revenue because more people are paying and contributing into it. It's a wild concept, I know, but let's consider it for just a moment as we see people fleeing states of high taxes and high regulations, wanting to look for an alternative. Let's not turn into the states that people are wanting to flee and turn away from because of the high taxes and high spending and high regulation. Let's do a crazy experiment and see how it works out for us. What do you say?
Wichita's fastest growing radio show. You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Make it happen today. It is a Friday. It's a free-for-all Friday, which means we love hearing from you. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you can shoot me a message all over social media as well. I want to shift gears for just a minute here, though, as we talk about some of the good news, some of the fun news, some of the sad news, some of the bad news. And coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Gregory Wrightston. We've had him on the program before. He's been on many other shows. I actually heard him on Joe Pags about a week or so after we interviewed him a month or two ago. And he wrote the book Inconvenient Facts, countering many of the climate change alarmist claims on what's happening. So we'll chat with him coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But as you know, it is that season now for tornadoes as well. The season's changing. I know, Progressives, hold on for a second. I know the climate's changing right now, and it's called weather, and sometimes things go from cold to warm, and that happens on relatively somewhat occasions. So be prepared. Just to let you know, it's the trigger warning right now in case you feel a little uncomfortable, you feel like you've been triggered, you feel like an emotional breakdown's about to happen. I'm warning you right now, the weather's going to change. Here's my prediction, and then I can make a big $1 million, multi-billion-dollar book and movie like Al Gore did about the weather's about to go from cold to warm, and it's going to take a little bit, and it's going to be about a month or so of going back and forth a little bit, and then we're going to see some summertime weather of storms and potentially hail and potential tornadoes, because that's what happens in the springtime and the early summertime. So I want to prepare you for that, and if you think that I'm some kind of psychic, I am, because I know that's coming. So I can write a book and I can go and speak to you about what the climate's going to do, because I'm really good at these things, because I, use common sense. And it's not because of I did it. It's probably because of the animals and the methane that's produced by cows and cow flatulence. That's probably what's causing it. I'm not quite sure on that one. I'll have to do a little bit more research. You may have to give me $1 million grant to study this, but then I can come out with whatever response you want me to have, and then I can report to you the fact that cow flatulence has caused the season to go from cold and snowy to warm and rainy, and then maybe warm and dry, and then maybe some tornadoes in there as well. We are getting into tornado season. And it is a season that I enjoy, I think, personally, because I just enjoy the big storms. I enjoy the hailstorms. I enjoy the, not necessarily tornadoes themselves, but I enjoy the excitement of them. I'm one of those where I get really energized during some of the crazy weather, and that's coming soon. I know it's been really, really calm this year comparatively so early on, but it is coming, and we need to be prepared for it. And we did sit down yesterday, recorded an interview with Brantley Hargrove. He's a journalist who wrote the book, The Man Who Caught the Storm, and talking about legendary tornado chaser Tim Samaras. You may have heard the name, but we sat down with Brantley yesterday talking about the tornado chasing, the man who caught the storm, talking about tornado season, talking about some of the improvements that we've seen with technology on the tornadoes, and this is what he had to say. Brantley Hargrove, journalist, author of the book, The Man Who Caught the Storm, on tornado chaser Tim Samaras. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. As you know, we're getting into the warmer season, especially here in Kansas. I remember just about a week or so ago with, a winter weather advisory on one side of the state and a tornado warning on the other side of the state, because that's the shenanigans that we have here in Kansas. And I'm really excited to have on the show talking about this season, talking about the insane weather that tornadoes bring in this season and this time of year brings. He is a journalist. He's written for Wired, Popular Mechanics, and Texas Monthly. Talking about tornadoes, Brantley Hargrove is on the line with us. Brantley, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you coming on here. You wrote a piece about the legendary tornado chaser Tim Samaras, and going into the season, I thought it was perfect and it was appropriate to discuss this. I mean, Kansas, obviously, we see tornadoes all over the place. I know you guys do in Texas as well. But talk a little bit about this time of year, this season, and some of the evolution that we've seen when it comes to the scientific research on tornadoes.
Sure. Well, I mean, we are well into tornado season right now. We've already seen some, and with May approaching, it's only going to pick up. So we are approaching what storm chasers would call, the best time of year. For everybody else, it's probably a pretty scary time of year. But the subject of the book I just wrote, The Man Who Caught the Storm, it's the story of Tim Samaras, the first person ever to gather data from the core of a violent tornado. It was something that atmospheric scientists have been trying and failing to do for decades. It was simply too difficult and too dangerous. But Tim was the guy who pulled it off. He was a remarkable storm chaser and a brilliant inventor. He built this device that could survive and actually come out the other side of the tornado with priceless data.
How long did it take for us to come up with something like this? I mean, everybody, when they look at and think of tornadoes, they think of Like the movie Twister, which I'll never forget as a child because that traumatized a lot of individuals. So this fascination with tornadoes that many individuals have had, and the technology that we've grown and been able to create to have something like this, how long did that take?
I mean, the first sort of ground-based instrument probe was developed in the 80s. It actually looked a lot like the Dorothy probe from Twister. In fact, I think it was kind of the inspiration for that movie. Okay. But they didn't have a lot of luck. Their device actually got hit by a tornado, and it tipped over and was damaged. It didn't gather any data. They tried again in the 90s with this big federally funded effort, and they got real close. I mean, they were within hundreds of yards of the core of a really violent tornado here in Texas. Sure. But close but no cigar. And so by the time Tim comes on the scene, atmospheric scientists had kind of, more or less given up on getting this kind of data. It was just believed to be, just really dangerous. And tornadoes are so hard to predict, much less get in front of them, that they moved on to other instruments, mobile radar. And so Tim was kind of entering this world where everybody was pretty skeptical, but he believed he had a unique skill set that might be able to allow him to pull it off. Mm-hmm.
Talk about the excitement of, and as you did your research on Tim, and as we see the Storm Chasers or the Tornado Chasers TV shows, we watch Twister, but just the experience that he showed and the excitement that he showed about chasing tornadoes and what all that entails.
Well, I mean, it's it can be tremendously exciting. I did some for the research of this book. I did some storm chasing myself. I went out with some of his colleagues and friends and chased tornadoes, and it's thrilling. I mean, but it's also can be incredibly boring. I mean, tornadoes are really hard to find. You have to drive for many days, for thousands of miles, just to get the shot at seeing one. So it's it takes a lot of dedication. But as I saw, whenever I saw a tornado outbreak in 2014 in Nebraska, we saw 4 EF4 tornadoes in one day. It's an experience that you will never forget. I mean, you're standing in the presence of something that could very easily kill you, that could strip a house down to the foundation. So there's a pull, there's an addiction there that I understand intimately, and that I certainly know Tim Samaras felt as well.
Sure, absolutely. This kind of research that he did and that so many others have done after him, with this excitement, this fascination of it, and as you mentioned, even an obsession, what have we taken away from this? The research that we have been able to gain and maybe be able to track tornadoes a little bit better, understand them a little bit better, and then be able to protect ourselves from them. What have we taken away from this?
Well, one of the things Tim contributed to the world was, actual data, actual wind speeds from the core of violent tornado. That was just a blank space in the equation. We didn't have anything from there. So what he did was he gave researchers and engineers specifically, actual wind speeds, so they know what to build against. So they know how to build tornado-resistant houses and buildings. And for researchers, he filled this space in. Vortex modelers who study tornado structure. They actually had data they could enter into this field, so that they don't have to leave this ground level space blank. To this day, Tim's research is in use. Now, did it answer all the questions? Did it solve the puzzle? No. That's incremental and ongoing work, and there's still a ton that we don't understand about tornadoes. Sometimes we even struggle to predict them. Mm-hmm. But we've come a long way, and Tim Samaras is part of that lineage.
Absolutely. We're talking with journalist Brantley Hargrove, the book, The Man Who Caught the Storm, about legendary tornado chaser Tim Samaras. Last question before we got to let you go, but have you seen, from your investigative journalism here with you, looking into Tim with you, researching this topic with you, even going out and doing some chases, have you seen a trend in tornadoes, maybe year over year, with maybe an increase in tornadoes that we've seen over the last few years, or maybe the severity of the storms over the last few years? I mean, have we been able to track this to kind of know where we're going to see climate-wise?
Yeah, that's definitely something people are looking into, and honestly, the jury's still sort of out because tornadoes aren't like hurricanes. They're an extremely variable event, and so the ingredients that come together that can form a really violent tornado. Sometimes they're not even apparent until minutes or an hour out, and so it's really hard to say. There is some research that seems to indicate that maybe the incidence of the most violent events is increasing. But the science isn't quite there yet. It's an extremely hard event to pin down, and each year can be different. So far this year is actually off to a pretty quiet start tornado-wise. But then, things could pick up, or next year could be even worse. So it's a hard event to pin down, and it's a testament to the fact that there's still so much to learn. That's just the complexity of the atmosphere, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, it is something to continuously try and research and look into. As you mentioned, I mean, it has been kind of quiet this year, especially in Kansas. I think this was the first year they said in like 10 or 15 years that we didn't have a tornado before Easter. So that was kind of interesting for us up here in Kansas. Brantley Hargrove, the book is The Man Who Caught the Storm. Brantley, I appreciate you coming on the show, my friend, and good luck with the book. And we're really excited to hear more about it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
There it is. That was Brantley Hargrove, author of the book The Man Who Caught the Storm, about the legendary tornado chaser Tim Samaras. And a kind of interesting fact, I would love, one of these days, I'm going to become a tornado chaser. One of these days, I got to do it. That'd be a heck of a lot of fun. Hour number 3, we're going to continue on with the climate change discussion as Gregory Wrightson, author of the book Inconvenient Facts. He'll be joining us talking about the climate as well, as they all kind of tie in together. It's time for Rick with the news.
Boom, it's
the humanity!
ladies and gentlemen.
What's happening, sir?
I tell you what a 24 hours for a news cycle. You've got Pompeo being confirmed.
The man.
You've got Bill Cosby being convicted. And overnight, breaking news on the Koreas having a summit showing the leader, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, crossing over that line of military embarkment to meet with the South Korean president. And then they joined hands and both walked into North Korea, kind of signifying a sense of unity. Well, this just in from the Associated Press. North and South Korea say they will jointly push for talks with the United States and also potentially China to officially end the Korean War. That war taking place from 1950 to 1953, and it stopped in an armistice that left the Koreas still technically at war. The North Korean leader and South Korean president announced after their summit today that the Koreas will push for three-way talks, including Washington, D.C., or four-way talks that also include Beijing on converting the armistice into a peace treaty and establishing permanent peace on the Korean peninsula.
So wild.
God bless Donald Trump.
See, right there. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what we need to have. There's so many aspects to this, which is great. As you mentioned, Donald Trump making this happen. I wouldn't trust anybody else other than Mike Pompeo to make this happen.
Well,
because did you see the pictures, by the way, of Mike Pompeo meeting?
Yes, a definite catalyst. And he was no more than confirmed yesterday and whisked off the continent. He's headed to do more work.
All right, Mike, here's what you have to do. You need to go. You need to meet with the little Kim over there.
This is what's next.
This is what you got to do.
All right,
you
buddy, I got
to
to cruise because I got some state news to formulate too.
You're just a busy guy today.
It is busy today, but anyway.
Great news.
Local news at the top of the hour, state news at the bottom of the hour, and news from the Salem Radio Network affirming what I just told you coming up at the top of the hour as well.
Big stuff happening. Rick with the news.
And that's the news.
There it is. Appreciate it very much. No, there's a lot of aspects going into this North Korea. We talked about it in the first half hour of the program. First off, of the little more progressive leader in South Korea, hopefully that's not a deterrent in this situation. It is good to hear Kim Jong-un going down across the southern border and doing that whole little media publicity stunt. Hopefully, I'm wondering if that was some of the terms that Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo had set in place with that secret meeting or secret conversation, phone conversation in over Easter weekend, of saying, hey, if we're going to start working together and we're going to start not hating each other or threatening to shoot missiles at each other, you need to make a significant sign of what you're going to do to start working with this. And one of those is ending the conflict with South Korea, walking across their border, and let's start making things happen here. You need to show some kind of signs of what you're going to do, and let's make this happen. I'm wondering if that wasn't some of the terms hidden behind the scenes by our administration, by President Trump and Mike Pompeo. It wouldn't surprise me, and that just shows all the more awesomeness of what we actually are doing right now. 10 minutes to the top of the hour. Our Free for All Friday continues. Your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
back into the Voice of Reason, about 4 minutes at the top of the hour. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Still rolling along on a free-for-all Friday. Hour number 3 right around the corner. Gregory Wrightston, author of the book Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. He'll be joining us talking about climate change. We just chatted with Brantley Hargrove, journalist on tornado chasing, and Tim Samaras, the traditional legendary tornado chaser. Has anybody gone on a tornado chase? And I wonder how many comparatively season over season, if we've been increasing and if that's a cause of climate change. You know it is. You know that they actually like to say it's all caused by climate change. Again, progressives, here's the trigger warning for you. The climate's going to change, and here's another crazy one for you. My prediction, it's going to get warm over the next few weeks. It's going to get warm because it's, summertime, so it's going to get warm. And I know that by, probably digesting Tide Pods, it's probably very difficult to process that kind of information, but it's going to get warm, and it'll continue to be warm for a little bit. We may get some rain, we may get some tornadoes and storms, but then it'll be warm, and then after that, it'll start cooling down. Be prepared, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to happen, and it's going to be wild, and it's going to be a heck of a ride, and then it'll cool down and start snowing again. See, I'm good at this. We're really good at this. I've always been curious that if we were concerned about the climate changing, and if we were concerned about it and, it was something that's been happening recently, why it never happened earlier. Why it never happened during, the Industrial Revolution, why it didn't happen in some of the other times when we didn't have filters and smokestacks, why it wasn't happening when we didn't have as many vehicles on the road. I was wondering why it didn't happen then, but all of a sudden it's happening now. So we'll talk about all that and more. We'll have fun with Gregory Wrightston. Plus, we got lots more news to come up with. State Representative John Whitmer sent a message. We appreciate him letting us know. He commented on the Facebook Live feed talking about some of the agenda-driven issues happening today on the floor of the House and the Senate, some of the big debates that are coming up. It's going to be a big day. Let me just tell you, the conservatives, not only do they need just a little support with your email and phone call today saying, hey, keep up the good fight, but they need your help. They really need your help. Call your legislators. Let them know what you think. There's a lot of big issues on the floor being debated today. We'll discuss that in hour number 3 as well. So we have a lot to get to. Plus, there is, as you know, as we are getting into the end of springtime, summertime season, it's starting to warm up, but it's also the end of the school year, and students are having a hard time being able to study and concentrate and prepare for their exams, and they're needing what? They're needing their safe space and cry closets. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We'll talk about that when we come back in hour number 3 as well. Lots to get to. Of course, your phone calls for a free-for-all Friday. This is your show, as always. Time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Lots more coming up in hour number 3. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
You have to be persistent. There's a difference, though, between that and obsession. The progressives and the Democrats in the state of Kansas do not understand the difference in persistence and obsession. There's no good in any way, shape, or form that would come out of an idea like expanding Medicaid programs. It has now turned into an obsession because you have a political agenda, not because it's best for the people of Kansas.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, make it happen.
Don't get fooled again.
Welcome into it, broadcasting live out of the heartland of America here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It is a Friday. You finally made it. The lights at the end of the tunnel. You can carpe diem. You can utilize this day the best that you possibly can. Let's have a little fun at this weekend. It is a Friday. What the heck? Let's make it a free-for-all Friday. As usual today, we open up lines to you. Whatever's bothering you, troubling you, does not matter. Let's have some fun today as we talk about whatever's on your mind. It's a free-for-all. Come on.
Baby, let's do it. Yeah, it's a good girl.
All right. 316-721-8255, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. We have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling as well. We're on KQAMradio.com. We got the stream, the TuneIn app to listen. Does not matter how you like to do so. We just love the fact that you do. The last half hour, we talked and kind of shifted gears a little bit towards climate change. Oh, the scary climate change. Oh, man. And we chatted with played our interview with Brantley Hargrove. He was the journalist that recorded Tim Samaras, the epic tornado chaser, and talking about tornado season here in the Kansas area. As you know, just a few weeks ago, we had a winter weather advisory on one side of the state with snow and blizzards and shutting down the highways. And on the other side of the state, it was warm with a tornado warning. Because welcome to Kansas. Why the heck not? So on the phone with us to talk about this, Earth Day, as you may or may not be aware of, was, I believe, last Sunday, as people go and try and celebrate the Earth. And we should. As you know, conservatives, we're conservationists. We understand how to properly take care of the Earth. If you look at any liberal, progressive climate change protest or rally, they leave more junk on the streets and on the ground than anybody else. Because they really don't care. They're there for their own personal agenda. They're there for their own thing. And for the ones that try and save the earth, quote unquote, they have their facts, they have their common sense all construed into twisted into pretzels, whereas we are the conservationists. And yes, we like to take care of our earth, and we like to take care of it appropriately, and this is the way that we actually do it. And on the phone with us to talk about this and a heck of a lot more, he is the author of the book Inconvenient Facts. We've chatted with him before. You've heard him on many other different talk shows as well, including, by the way, I love the fact that after we had talked with him last time, he was on the Joe Pag Show, which you can hear in the evenings here on KQAM as well. It's Mr. Gregory Wrightston back with us. Greg, how are you, my friend?
Andy Hooser always gets there first. Yeah,
that's right.
I was there with you before I got on Joe Pags.
Man, we were able to punch out. We were able to get you on beforehand. I like that idea. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too. So there's a lot to talk about here. There's Earth Day was Sunday, and of course we were at lots of crazy talk going on and predictions.
Yeah, first off, let's talk about Earth Day, because it seems to be dying down. I read the story that over the last few years, really, that Earth Day and the activist movement of climate change has kind of died off a little bit. There's not as much enthusiasm about it, but everybody still likes to hold Earth Day up as the day that we get to be maybe not drive your vehicle, not burn any fossil fuels, not use any, probably not exhale either, because that would be really bad for the environment, probably not cause any flatulence, because that would be harm and detrimental to the environment. But your take over Earth Day over the last few years, have you seen a decrease in the progressive movement, or have you actually seen it increase with some of their activism and with what they want to try to promote?
Yeah, it's there's a feeling I get that it's actually decreasing, and I also have a real sense that people are really turning around on this catastrophic man-made global warming nonsense that. I really feel that. I speak at a lot of scientific meetings, and I'm warmly embraced by the scientists there. In fact, the usual reaction I get after I talk is people coming up and vigorously shaking my hand afterwards. And I get very little pushback. I get pushback online from, the Facebook crowd and others. Of course, they demonize anybody that dares question Al Gore.
Sure.
But I have a true sense that perhaps it's the Trump effect, perhaps it's Scott Pruitt and Ryan Zinke being appointed to Interior and EPA and trying to roll back some of this nonsense. But no, I'm very optimistic about getting some true science, facts, and data back into this rather than political science into the discussion.
Sure.
And that's a lot of it's been driven by a political agenda. It's being driven by politics instead of science, and it's selective science, not and that's where we've been having, and a lot of the funding from the universities. If you're not going to write something that's pro catastrophic man-made global warming, you're not going to get the funding. I think that's changing. I'm very positive.
Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm also hoping that people, once they begin trying to debate and actually dialogue in this, I know sometimes on the left-wing side of the aisle, it's very difficult to dialogue because we're stuck in our little safe space and don't like to hear opposing views. But if they are trying to, then maybe some of the, like you mentioned, some of the facts and information that you and others have been able to actually try and get out there are coming out, and they're having a hard time trying to debunk them or trying to counter these. So they're falling silent and not necessarily trying to push that agenda so much because they know they're in a losing battle.
Yeah. There's your listeners are going to hear some things over the next 10 minutes or so, or 15 minutes that they've never heard unless they were tuned into the first interview or that they bought my book.
Mm-hmm.
Things like forest fires, catastrophic heat waves, droughts, increased heat mortality. They're not increasing like we've been told. They're decreasing. And the experts tell us it's because, and this kills them whenever I say that, all those things are decreasing, and that's factual. And the experts say it's decreasing because of increased temperature and increased CO2. And their heads spin around and their top blows off whenever I say that. And I think I sent you some stickers, I believe, my I Heart CO2 stickers.
Yes, I have some. And actually, for the camera here, for the cable channel, and for the Facebook Live, we do have it there, the book and the, I Heart CO2 with the Inconvenient Facts, and I love that. So the question I have is, with the increased temperatures and increased CO2, is that caused by human activity, or is that caused by natural effects?
Well, we've seen, the thing I like to say about temperature is that the only thing constant about temperature is it's never constant. And it goes up and down for thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of years.
Sure.
And it's all been naturally driven. And what Al Gore and his ilk want your listeners to believe is that those natural driving temperatures suddenly ceased functioning at the beginning of the 20th century. I don't think so. That's not the way it works. But again, don't be a denier. We have been adding CO2, and CO2 is a greenhouse gas. So there has to be some contribution of warming, and I would argue, and most of the people on my side would argue, that warming contribution is fairly small and greatly overwhelmed by the same natural forces that have been driving it. I mean, we can look back. The current warming trend we're in started in the year 1695, and for the next 40 years, the rate of increase of temperature was greater than any time since. So what we're seeing today is not unusual, and it's not unprecedented. And we also saw that about the same amount of temperature increased from that year of 1695 to about 1850 has increased since. So, and that whole period had to be naturally driven with zero effect.
Sure.
So, this is what we're talking about, is natural forces driving temperature.
Natural forces driving temperature. I've always been fascinated because this big movement really started, I don't know, the 70s or the 80s, when they started off with the global cooling, and then they went to the acid rain argument, then the global warming, and now it's just climate change because they just don't know really which way it was going to go with the ups and downs and the changes, and whichever way now apparently just fits into their narrative because it's so vague and broad. But I have always asked the question is if we were contributing to that and we were making things so terribly bad, why didn't we see that same type of argument back in the early 1900s during the Industrial Revolution, when we didn't have filters on smokestacks, when we were still starting to drive vehicles and we were having the factories all over the place, but yet we weren't hearing that narrative of, oh, yeah, all of this stuff's destroying the environment, and now we're starting to see warming temperatures, or we're starting to see some type of effect.
Yeah, well, in my book, the last half of the book, I deal with what I call the climate apocalypse events, and I will argue that all these bad things that they're predicting are just that, predictions. It's speculation. It's based on climate models that can't really model climate very well. So we're looking at, what I do is I live in the real world, and in the book I look at actual data of what's actually happening. And rather than rely on these failed climate models, we can look and see, and I would argue that we've had rising temperatures for hundreds of years. We've had increases in CO2. Shouldn't we see some reflection of all the bad things they're talking about? Shouldn't we see, they will tell you that forest fires are increasing. And I love using forest fires because the example is so clear, and the experts are so clear on this, that the forest fires have been decreasing for more than 100 years. And the experts say it's due to climate change. The experts say it's due to increasing temperature and increasing CO2, which are leading to soil moisture content across the world. And it's that increased soil moisture that dampens the fires, that dampens drought, that dampens the heat waves. It's a really, really feel-good story that's not being told. And in fact, NASA, if your listeners are near a computer, they could Google NASA, greening, and Sahara and see what they get. So it's not Greg saying, "Oh, the Earth is getting better." It's NASA. NASA says that 50% of the planet, up to 50%, is what they call greening.
Mm-hmm.
Only 4% of the planet is what they call browning or loss of vegetation. That's a really good story. I'll take that any day. 50% improvement, 4% going the other way.
Absolutely.
And again, NASA attributes it to climate change, increasing precipitation based on higher temperatures, and more soil moisture retention due to the CO2 fertilization effect. Those two combined, and that's greening the Sahara. If they Google that, they'll find that 300,000 square kilometers of the southern Sahara, it's called the Sahel, is greening. It's turning into a lush grassland. People are moving back in there that haven't lived there in hundreds and thousands of years. That should be a feel-good story that should be on the front page of the New York Times, but it's not, and it won't be.
Well, of course not, because it doesn't fit the narrative. It really doesn't. And I mean, here in Kansas, we've already seen forest fires early on this season, and it's been a little bit drier. We've had our wheat conditions that are a little bit worse than they have been the last few years because of the lack of moisture, but we've seen some rain the last couple of days. But you can't judge just one tiny little area of the world, of the globe, and say, oh, look, this isn't getting what it needs to, so therefore climate change is actually ruining things. Yeah, we've seen some earlier forest fires here in Kansas this year, and yeah, it's been a little bit drier, but that does not mean to say, like you said, in the other part of the world, they're seeing more moisture and things actually happening, so that's just the way things are.
Yeah, the Canadian Fire Service are true experts in that. In the book, I have a lot of information from them, but they did a worldwide study, worldwide being the northern hemisphere, of forest fires over many decades, actually going back to the turn of the 19th century, and they found a long-term decline of forest fires that they attribute it to rising temperatures and increased CO2, and they predict that increasing CO2 and increasing temperatures will continue to depress forest fires as we move forward in the future. Your listeners have probably never heard that.
Can't say that we have.
No, it's a feel-good story, and feel-good stories don't sell papers. They don't get people to watch TV. It's much more riveting to watch homes going up in flames than it is to watch a kid playing basketball on the street.
Sure.
And
no, you're right.
Those are the things we're fighting. And again, whenever I started writing the book, I thought forest fires were increasing, and I was frankly shocked what I found. I'd like to empower your listeners. I'm providing a PowerPoint of the top 25 figures in the book. All they have to do is go to the website and hit subscribe, and I'll send a link, so they can actually have a PowerPoint of the key figures that I have in the book. That way, if their idiot brother-in-law in Hayesville, south of town, posts something about polar bears on Facebook, they can go, "Oh no, here's a JPEG of polar bear population for the last 60 years,"
mm-hmm.
right? And then you can. So I'm going to empower those. So it's inconvenientfacts.xyz if they want to get that. Like I say, these are things that need to get out. It's all science and fact based. So it's inconvenientfacts.xyz, and you can buy the book there, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It actually got into the Barnes & Noble brick-and-mortar stores last week.
Very good, very good. Inconvenientfacts.xyz. We got a few minutes left. I want to ask you a couple more questions, one of them being about the Ice Age. And one of the stats in here shows the CO2 levels during the Ice Age relatively low compared to what we're seeing right now, because the narrative on the left is the fact that with the more CO2, it's going to increase the temperatures for around the world. It's going to heat everything up, and then all of a sudden we're going to see this big change, and it's going to drop us back into another ice age, because that's it's just going to cause. Is that really going to be the case?
Well, yes and no. We are going to go into another ice age at some point. We're in 100,000-year cycles. We're in these warming periods that we're thankfully in has lasted about 11,000 years. The warm periods last 8 to 15,000 years. So we could go back into one at some point. Is it going to be this century or next? I don't know. But when it comes, it's going to be horrific. It will be famine, pestilence, mass depopulation like we've never seen before. In fact, when it comes, we'll be thinking that Donald Trump's building the border or the border wall on the wrong border, because you're going to have about 80 million Canadians heading south. So my advice to your listeners would be, don't sell your mittens, and better yet, buy property in Costa Rica. But, it's hard to predict when these cooling trends, the big one would be the Ice Age. When is the warming trend that we're in right now going to stop? Based on the other ones we've seen over the last 10,000 or so years, we might see another, who knows, 50 or 150 years of warming until it cools. But we do know from history, when that warming period ends and we start cooling, really bad things happen. Crop failure, famine, pestilence, mass depopulation. Warming is good. We see throughout history the rise and fall of civilizations are closely linked to the rise and fall of temperatures.
Very interesting.
So and it's fascinating.
Sure. We got about a minute and a half left or so here. We're talking with Gregory Wrightston, author of the book Inconvenient Facts. You can visit his website, inconvenientfacts.xyz. Last question before we let you go, but the religious aspect to this. And we were kind of briefly chatting about this off air and with some of the other discussions that have been happening, talking about the use of the natural resources and man, trying to be the conservationists that we are with the earth. What's kind of the religious aspect to all this?
I didn't, there's nothing religious in the book about it. It's all science and facts. But I got contacted by Calvin Beisner, the founder of the Cornwall Alliance. And I'll just paraphrase what they believe. He called me and said, your book fully aligns with our philosophy. I was taken aback. Their philosophy is that we need to utilize or should utilize all of Earth's resources to benefit mankind and do it responsibly. Or in his words, what he would say is we need to use all of God's creation for the betterment of mankind and be good stewards of the earth. And I thought about it, and it's right. I'm painting a picture in this book of, rather than the earth spiraling into this climate hell from which we can't recover, we see an earth that's prospering, that's flourishing, that's benefiting.
Sure.
We see the earth's ecosystems improving, and by relation to that, humanity is prospering. And that's a really, really, really good story, and it's contrary. So many Judeo-Christian, the Christian denominations, the Pope, they're all anti-fossil fuels because we're going to be destroying the earth. And we're painting a much different scenario here of an earth that's flourishing and prospering. So I tell your listeners, just to finish up here, sleep well. You're not destroying the earth. Good things are happening.
Good things are happening. I love it. Gregory Wrightson, author of the book Inconvenient Facts. You can visit him online at inconvenientfacts.xyz. You can see the PowerPoint. You can get the book. You can get some of these fun bumper stickers, I Heart CO2. I love it. Greg, it's always great to have you on the show, my friend. I love the fact that things are going really well for you, and we'd love to get you back on the show again soon.
All right, let's do it. Thank you.
Hey, great times there. Gregory Wrightson, author of the book Inconvenient Facts. We appreciate him very much joining the show. We got some calls lining up. We'll get to you as soon as we come back as we open up lines to you on a Free for All Friday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back in. 29 minutes past the hour. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Thanks again to Gregory Wrightson, author of the book Inconvenient Facts. We have a copy of the book we'll give away before the end of the show, so stay tuned in for that. We got some calls on the line. Hang tight. We'll start off the last segment with you right here on the show. Don't go anywhere. Stay on the line if you're on the phone. If you want to call in, you're more than welcome to do so. We'll start off the phone calls for the last half hour of the program as soon as we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Don't go anywhere. Hey, welcome back into it. 36 minutes past the hour Oh, yeah, let's do this.
Keeping reason in the world of politics.
But if you're really angry, why in the first place are you not frustrated and angry to the fact that you have to spend $250 to $600 of your own cash to be able to provide resources in the classroom?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There we are, making it happen today, wrapping up the show today. It is a free-for-all Friday. Welcome aboard. Your thoughts and calls, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I've been getting some messages. I teased it at the top of the hour, or at the end of last hour, the cry closets on campuses. We will talk about that before the end of the show. People saying, what is that? Oh, yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. We'll discuss that in just a minute here. Let's go to the phone zone on your free-for-all Friday, 316-721-8255, line number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, how are you, sir?
Well, I got a bad throat.
Uh-oh. Whiskey.
Listen to your guest, and if you get him back on again, ask him if I'm correct that the primary greenhouse gas on the planet Earth is water. And if we can just get rid of the oceans and everything, we can control our climate a lot better.
If we could only get rid of all the major oceans and all the water, then
we can put a plastic sheet over the ocean so the water can't get into the atmosphere.
Sure.
And why we can have a perfect world, and we can make sure Al Gore is trapped in the plastic.
There you go. See, there it is right there. Jim, I love it. Get your voice feeling better, my friend. Whiskey will help that one. I promise you. 316-721-8255. That's a great point. I mean, water obviously heats things up. It electrifies things. If you get out of the swimming pool or you go swimming and then you go and stand in the sun, you burn quicker and easier because it heats things up, because it's the magnifying glass really with the water. That's what it is. I mean, water in the air vapor, it just warms things up. It's a great point. Let's go back to the phones here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, Andy.
Good.
My wife was just reading the paper to me about the Chancellor, Mrs. Gray Little, and when she retires, she's going to get the same $510,000 as a consultant.
Yes.
And yet they're going to hire somebody for $550,000.
Sure.
To take her spot. This is beyond the pale. It is outrageous. And we can blame it, go right back to the Regents. This is cronyism at its biggest and finest, and this is just outrageous. And that's why I'm all for we need to privatize every college and let them sink or swim.
You know what? I completely agree. I'm glad you brought it up. It's been on my stack of stuff today that I just haven't gotten to yet, but you're right. $500 and some odd $1,000 a year as an advisory role after the retirement. So not only have they been receiving that for their entire time as, the president, but also now retiring just as an advisor, going to be receiving the same amount. That is your paycheck. That is your tax money going into there, subsidizing someone to be an advisor, probably showing up for 1 or 2 meetings a month and then receiving $500,000 a year.
Well, that's not counting their retirement money.
Oh, sure.
Okay?
No, they're still receiving the retirement money full force. Absolutely.
And they're at the top of the scale as far as what their input is towards capers. Okay? They're at the top of the scale, the
Sure.
big money.
Sure. I mean, don't you feel all warm and cozy? Maybe that's what part of our tax money is going towards when we increase our taxes to spend close to $1 billion in additional funding over the next years.
Well, the thing of it is that the Regents has obligated the taxpayers of the state without the consent, to me, of the legislature. Okay, and that's what's wrong with this hiring at their level, and we can't say anything about it that it's too much.
No, of course not. We have no say in this. This is not something the legislatures are passing that we can call our legislators on. This is the Board of Regents that's making this decision. It is the universities that's making this decision, and it's just going to happen. Now, the universities, they have been very concerned about education finance as well, because they think that the more that's going into K through 12, that they're concerned that they're going to lose some of their funding, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I know that we've kind of tightened the belt a little bit on universities, and they were at least concerned about it because they haven't been able to expand and grow the way they've wanted to. So just to sink in and say, you know what, $500,000 plus a year is just going to be set aside just for the salary of someone, who's retired and on an advisory position type of role right now. Now look, we see this in the private sector when it comes to maybe like construction, and you have the different contractors that come out and the different inspectors that come out and take a look at these sorts of things. But for an advisory role in a public realm, I'm pretty sure we have plenty of different advisors that they can look towards, or they can even do it on a case-by-case basis and maybe compensate them for on occasion that way. But to have them full force as an advisor paying $500,000+ a year is an absolute abuse of our taxpayer money, but we have zero say over this.
Well, all I got to say is, people out there, you better get a hold of your representatives, because they're the ones that holds the purse. And tell them this is outrageous and it has got to stop.
Well, that's what we got to do, Ron. I love it. I appreciate it, my friend. I'm glad you brought that up. That just shows. I mean, look, right now we're talking about debate on taxes and spending and budgets and da-da-da-da-da-da, and I enjoy it because I'm a dork like that. A lot of people just kind of glaze over and they don't want anything to do with it. It's just frustrating to them because we spend money and waste money on a lot of different things. This is one of them, because this is a very frustrating situation where we don't have a whole lot of say in it. But yet, it just kind of happens. Poof, there it is. New advisory position. I want to be an advisor for a university because, well, I mean, I talk policy and I talk politics, so I want to be on an advisory role for a university, and then maybe, just maybe, I can get paid $500,000 for that, because that would be super awesome. 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Friday. It's Myron.
What's happening, Myron? How are you, sir?
Oh, I cannot let any discussion of global or climate change, let's be right, something that's so serious that the California legislature had to, I don't know if they actually passed it, but they brought up a bill because there was so much bovine flatulence that was putting methane into the air. So when your cow farts, you're getting a ticket.
Yes, that is passed. That is law, and they're trying to create technology and different pieces of equipment that would help not only regulate the flatulence, but when you actually clean up their stuff afterwards, that there's actually machines now that the farmers, apparently the dairy farmers especially in California, need to purchase in order to process that, to be able to remove it, so that way it doesn't continue to put methane into the environment after they actually do their business. So yes, it is in law, and they've been working on that. Governor Brownback, that happened actually during Governor Brownback's time, and he was working with many of the dairy farm industries in California to say, hey, you're not going to be taxed or regulated to death if you come into Kansas, trying to bring some of the dairy here. And it started working because the dairy farmers can't afford to buy pieces of equipment to regulate the flatulence of their cows in the dairy farm.
Yeah, welcome to Kansas, where cow farts are legal.
Yeah, the crazy backward state of Kansas. Myron, I appreciate it, where we actually allow cows to flatulate without having to regulate that on a daily basis. But maybe that's why. See, that all makes sense now, though. Because we allow that to happen, the climate's been getting a little bit warmer in the state of Kansas, and therefore we're seeing more wildfires earlier on in the season, and it's a little bit drier, and the wheat is suffering from it. It's because of the fact that we do not regulate the flatulence of cows. I just wrote the next piece of the next article for one of the liberal mainstream newspapers in California. Get ready for that. Kansas, state of Kansas, evil, terrible Kansas that we don't even allow state-funded travel to. They don't regulate the flatulence of their cows, and look at that. Their wheat's bad, it's dry, and they've had wildfires in the state earlier than normal. It must be from the global warming caused by the cow flatulence in the state of Kansas. I already see the story coming. It's already happening because this is how short-minded the left-wing progressives actually are. Let's go back to the phones here. Good morning. What's your name?
G'day, mate. It's Rick. How are you?
Rick, how are you, my friend?
Mate, not too bad. Sorry I was late. G'day, everybody. How's it going down there in Wichita?
Enjoying, man. I'm loving it. It is a beautiful day. We had about 70-degree weather yesterday. We're rocking it today. And what's the normal weather like on an annual basis down in Australia?
Gee, I can only work it out for you in Celsius over here. It's about, I don't know, 26, 28 degrees. Don't know what that is in your in Fahrenheit and stuff, but I know our summer gets to about 52 to 54 degrees Celsius, which is way over 100. And where I live in the wintertime, it gets down to about -1. That's about as cold as it ever gets.
Okay, so it's not too terribly bad.
Yeah.
I can dig it. I can go
No,
with it.
it's not bad.
Yeah. What's on your mind this morning?
Barbecue weather.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we love it when you call in, my friend. What's on your mind today?
Well, apart from flatulence, which is really interesting, I cannot believe, they should drag that system to some of the, well, here in Australia, they should drag it up to Parliament House and watch the meter go off its head. That'd be funny.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Enough. Oh, hell yeah. There's enough exhaust in that place to, yeah. Anyways, look, just a couple of things. First of all, you look very, very sharp, by the way. I saw the photo. Most impressed.
Oh, thank you.
How did that go for you? Because it looked good. I watched the speech, and it was great. And again, I don't want to get onto the whole gun thing. I always do that because, well, I'm a deprived child. Remember, they treat us like children. You're not allowed to have guns.
That's right. Not allowed to have any of those. But yesterday we did have the tax rally with the Americans for Prosperity, talking about lower taxes in the state of Kansas. But with your guys' government down there, I know, as you mentioned before, it's a little bit more on the socialized front, a little bit bigger government, more regulation. What's the tax rates you guys have to worry about down there?
Well, it depends. If you're one of the big corporations, you don't pay tax. You just don't. We get, our government will give them all up about $500 million a year. So big companies here don't pay tax. Little guys that own their own businesses get screwed to the wall. At the moment, it's about 38 cents in the dollar, and it climbs on a scale. We have this thing called bracket creep. They'll get you just over the line, then bang, they'll hit you with a much higher tax rate. And you're like, what? I didn't ask for this.
Wow.
But the main thing I sort of rang about was you were talking about, oh, God, here I am. I've just totally lost for words. The way the last caller was talking about how you can leave one job for $500,000 and you can get hired back and get more money.
Sure.
With my particular job that I did for years, it was a rather thankless sort of a job. I was the guy that used to have to photograph fatalities and things. Rugged job anyway.
Sure.
After 25 and a half years, you just left the job. But what they're doing now is what they've done with my section and a whole lot of other sections, and this was working for the government. What they do is they say, mate, you're sitting down there doing nothing. Well, I'm sorry, I can't organise people get vaporised by trains every other day. What would you like me to do? It's not like it's a tow truck company. We'll just get some, wait for a wet day, get some oil, put it on the ground, sit back and wait. So they said, look, you're costing us $22,000 a month in wages. Not happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you redundancy. Take it, our advice, we'll leave.
Sure.
And as soon as we've done that, what happens is all these private companies, which are ex-railway employees who are now managers, they all leave and they open up private companies. And railways now pays, instead of $22,000 a month, anywhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a month.
Sure.
But we have the same situation happening as you do. It's like, we'll get rid of you at this job and we'll hire a private contractor. And the majority of these people don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
They really, really don't.
That's true.
I don't know how you do that.
Sure. And we have a lot of private contractors here. And look, and I'm in support of many of the private contractors in the sense because, sometimes it is a little bit cheaper. We get the expert if they, like you mentioned, if they actually know what they're doing and that they actually do it appropriately. The problem that I have with this one, with the advisory role, is it's a public university. I mean, this is not something that we got to decide on and saying, hey, we need an advisor for a state-run university. This is an advisor that they just said, the president's retiring and he wants to be in an advisory role. So it's our taxpayer money funding him to do nothing more than just be a quote-unquote advisor at the same salary that he was making as the president while they hire a new president at an even higher wage. So really, two presidents running one university is costing taxpayers over $1 million a year.
Over twice as much.
Exactly, and it's completely absurd. In the private sector.
And to do what?
Right, exactly. In the private sector, it makes sense because if a business chooses to hire a private contractor, then that's their prerogative and it's no expense other than the business expense that they're actually coming out with. But for the taxpayers to have to subsidize something like this at a state-run university is completely absurd.
Can I ask a question? Because I don't know. I haven't been. I haven't seen.
Sure.
But we have a common saying here in Australia. It's called arcing up. It means like hell.
Right.
Is there no like hell clause over there that says, look, this is a government-run institution, okay? We're paying the bill for this. You come to us and you ask us whether or not we're going to say yay or nay to it. You don't just turn around and go spending my money without asking. That's just it's not happening.
I
You
wish
don't
we
have
did.
that there?
I wish we did. No, we don't. We don't have anything like that. All we have is just our legislators that could come back and say, no, you're not allowed to do that, and we need to start delegating through our power of the purse in Congress to be able to dictate on what you're allowed to spend on. So that's really what we have. Rick, I appreciate it, my friend, very much so. We got to take a break running late on one, but we always love chatting with you. Have a great weekend down under there in Australia. That's always a great honor to be able to talk to you there. The fact that we have listeners all around the world on this show. Rick, I love it, my friend, very much. Got to take a break. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Wrapping up the show today. I can't believe it's almost done already. It's insane how fast this show actually goes. This portion of The Voice of Reason on a Friday, on a free-for-all Friday, on a fried chicken Friday, brought to you by the Inman Harvest Cafe, 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman, just north of Hutch, as they are getting ready for really not just, I don't know how they do it, like the craziness goes on all the time. It's not just a fried chicken Friday, but a fried chicken Saturday tomorrow as well. We got to talk about, but Katie's on the line with us. Katie, how's breakfast going this morning?
Oh, it's going great, Andy. Happy Fried Chicken Friday.
Happy
I
Fried Chicken
really like
Friday.
to listen to that Australian guy talk.
Man, I tell you
don't know
what.
anything. Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know. He makes me want to learn more about the Australian government. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's a
about
concerning because I've always wanted to go down there, but then he talks about what's really going on, and it's kind of concerning because we thought that was kind of a safe haven for somewhat conservatism down there, and it doesn't seem like that's really the case.
Doesn't sound like it, does it?
No, not at all. You have your Fried Chicken Friday today, the big buffet from 11 to 1, the evening buffet from 5 to 8 o'clock tonight, the free slice of pie for the evening one as well. You got your fried chicken, you've got all the goodies, but it's going to happen tomorrow as well. We'll tease, but first off, what's on the slate for today?
So today's lineup includes meatloaf, which is our homemade recipe for meatloaf. We've got our chicken and broccoli casserole, so that's chicken, broccoli, saucy stuffed cheese, yummy.
Yum.
Then we've got a cheesy cornflake potato, which some people like. Some people I know call them funeral potatoes because you always get them at the meal after a funeral. It's kind of a depressing name. So, but that's what they are. They're the hash browns, the saucy sour cream, and then cheese, and then cornflakes on top. So. That's the lineup for lunchtime. At supper, we'll have our famous roast beef, which is slow roasting. It's delicious. It's amazing. Then we've got pie, so you've got to come down here for the pie, okay? Because we've got, like, a huge lineup for pie today. And of course, pie will be available tomorrow, too. We'll talk about that in a sec. So, okay, coconut, chocolate, pumpkin pecan, rhubarb custard, cherry cream cheese, raisin, apple, and custard, banana split, and I don't know what else. I don't know.
Very good.
Lots of pie.
Lots of pie, and you got to get your slice as soon as you get there, because if not, then your slice is probably going to be gone. And
it might be.
It might be, and you need to kind of utilize that as soon as you walk in the door. So grab your slice of pie now. All of these goodies with the fried chicken and with the pies, they're going to be there tomorrow as well, because if anybody's looking for a weekend getaway to go do something fun, especially in the Wichita area here, head up there for the Antique Car Show happening tomorrow in Inman. What's going on?
So we're going to have over 100 cars. Last year we had 150 cars, plus antique tractors, farm implements, and motorcycles. So lots and lots to see. There's games for the kids. Last year we had, like, the Hudson Hornet was here, if you've ever seen the movie Cars. He was here, so I don't know if we'll have him here this year or not, but lots and lots of different things going on. It's a fantastic time. Now, we always serve our fried chicken buffet on that day, and it's hugely popular. So we've got our fried chicken, we've got our barbecued meatballs, because meatballs, hello, and then and then our baked beans, which go so well with the meatballs. You kind of mix it all together in a big gloppy mess, and then chicken enchiladas, and that's a creamy. There's green chilies, white cheese. So good. And I really just do like to mix it all up in a big gloppy mess. So that's what you're going to find on our buffet tomorrow from 11 to 2.
That's from 11 to 2 tomorrow. And during that's perfect time for lunchtime during the car show to go and walk around, have a weekend up there, enjoy, and then be able to eat some fried chicken. I don't know how you guys do it. 2 days of a fried chicken day. It's going to be kind of intense.
It's going to be insane. insane, but we're still going to take time to pray for our Kansas legislature because they're going through it right now. So, we're gonna support them too, and all the hard decisions that they have to make, and just people just come here. It's an awesome place to be.
It's an awesome place to be. I love it. Inman Harvest Cafe, InmanHarvestCafe.com. You can call them 620-585-6925, or just head up and visit 112 South Main Street in downtown Inman. Katie, we love it. We appreciate it. You guys enjoy the next couple of days.
Thanks, Andy. We'll talk to you next week.
Very good. Always a pleasure there, Katie, with the Inman Harvest Cafe right there. We appreciate them partnering up with us. By the way, speaking of the legislation, it is Friday, and we got a message on our Facebook Live feed from one of our legislators, John Whitmer, and she said, busy day today in both chambers. The Senate debating an expansion of gaming bills, slots, and dog tracks. We talked to the dog racers and the horse racers, did we not? With Race for Kansas, they're debating that bill today, expanding the gaming bill. Meanwhile, in the House, has the omnibus spending bill and 3 tax bills today. It's going to be a long day in the House for sure. Don't expect Democrats to run. By the way, don't expect Democrats as well to run Medicaid expansion and looking for tax debates on there. So a big debate, taxes, Medicaid expansion, gaming in the Senate side, all happening today. Call your legislators and make sure you know your position on those and let them know as well. It's always fun, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday to kick off a brand new week. This is The Voice of Reason. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.